there are so many foreign-born
Yeah.
individuals here. These are the next steps we need to take.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, I think so. English is one of a widely spoken language, and not just in United States, but across the world. It is the language of business, right? So while there's accent bias, right, there is still the very fact that we conduct business heavily in English across the globe. So ESL is important for people to at least understand and communicate at the very basic level of the language, understanding the language, learning a new language. What I don't want to over index on with ESL, right? And I suppose I'm always kind of cautious when I see companies offering the program. I hope it's a genuine offering, not to eradicate accents, but to say, listen, let's make sure that when I say pen and you say pen, we're saying the same thing. Not necessarily how I say pen and how you say pen. Does that make sense? So a good ESL program is one that teaches the English language just as it is.
Again, divided issue. You do hear the narrative, well, you need to know English before you come here.
Yeah, because that's the language we speak here. Listen, it's just like if you're in Paris, no French because that's the national language. Absolutely, that's respect, right? Respect for what is the language. But I'm always cautious. How we say that sometimes can be very coded. It is a divided issue, and it shouldn't be a divided issue. It's like, yes, let's learn English, but just because I speak English in a broken form, I still speak English, So, yeah.
And now I wanted to, we went from the workplace.
Yeah.
And just finishing up our conversation on visas, you said you did get the work visa, you did go to law school.
Ended up taking a job with Nationwide that's headquartered here in Central Ohio. And with that job comes the decision to find a new community to live in. I didn't know much about Central Ohio, but I knew what I liked in the community. I had lived in the Shaker Heights community up in Northeast Ohio, if you know that area well. And so for me, what that meant, and I went to college in the Northeast. I love older homes, right? No knock to New Albany, but no cookie cutter homes for me, right? Older homes, with older homes comes older trees. I love those big mature trees that like have this canopy. I love a tree canopy. And I wanted good schools, great parks. The proximity to downtown was also very important to me, right? So I had these 5 things, and that was kind of what I put out to the realtor. It could have been any community. Bexley came up, Grandview came up, but ultimately the home was in Upper Arlington, and that's why I chose it. I had no idea what Upper Arlington was like, or that it wasn't very diverse, but I had gotten some kind of inkling to it because a couple of incidents happened when I said I had found a place in Upper Arlington. First of all, before the realtor showed me Upper Arlington, had told me something to the effect that you're going to love Upper Arlington. It's going to look a lot like Shaker, but you're not going to have that feel. And I didn't quite know what that meant. And I had colleagues that I had told that, because I'd already started working at Nationwide before I moved to Central Ohio. I had colleagues that told me when I had said, I found a place, and they're like, where? You saw the excitement. I'm like, Upper Arlington. And it was kind of like this, what? Huh? So I had that. I already had those things. And so, but it didn't take long to understand why those were the reactions when I got there, when I got to Upper Arlington. And it started with my daughter. She was 5 years old. She started kindergarten in Upper Arlington. She was the only Black kid in her kindergarten class. And I've told people how that plays out, and how that played out specifically for my daughter. It was about a month and a half in. She came home and she said, Mom, can you straighten my hair for school tomorrow? And I thought, a very odd request for a 5-year-old, right? Especially one that doesn't straighten her hair. Like, it's not like a regular occurrence in our house. She's only straightened it once before in her life, before that point. And I I tease, but the Black culture, we just, you pull out the hot comb for like Easter, you know what I mean? And Christmas, right? You just don't pull out the hot comb. And so that incident with my daughter, coupled with our first Black History Month and not seeing a lot of happening for Black History Month, really forced me to say, I need to be involved in this community and help shape the community she grows up in, because I had chosen this. I said this a lot in my campaign. This was my community of choice, right? And when my children grow up, that's going to have been home. Like at 5 years old and my son was a year, they don't know any other community. This is a community that they know, and they ought to be able to say similar things like other people in Upper Arlington. Where are you from? They have to say Upper Arlington like freely without a lot of explanation. Yeah.
And I want to get into attitude, and I'm sure attitudes, we've discussed biases, but have been different between maybe college campuses to workforces to now the community. Some nice, maybe some not so nice. You are the first city council person of color in Upper Arlington. Now you're the first mayor of color in Upper Arlington. Tell me about, was that an easy road? Was it an easy path? What, up until this point, what are the different attitudes that you've come across? And then what does this say about a community that isn't as diverse as some of its neighboring communities?
I always say my journey to this, it has to be like the brazen confidence of a newcomer, right? The fact that I'm so naive, don't know very much about the baggage or the history, was a lot of the reasons where my confidence probably came from. I just thought, listen, I had a very strong purpose, which is a community for my children. That was enough to hold on to. That even when I started running and getting some of the nasty grams, right? People saying, no one wants you here, take your woke self. I got some emails that were unsavory, right? I had to be unfazed by that because of the purpose, all right? Because of what I believed I was doing. And I'm grateful to the voters of Upper Arlington, because I didn't elect myself to office. They saw it too and voted. I often say that, just because I'm the first, it doesn't mean that there weren't Black people in Upper Arlington before I was, right? It just took stepping up, right, to also give others the permission if they need it. And I don't think anyone needs permission to do this work. But when you see it, you have a tendency to believe you can be it as well. So my why was strong enough to overcome some of the doubts and some of the biases and some of the things that I had to go through while I was running.
Do you think that it shows some sort of shift, as this is a divided issue, immigration's a divided issue? Do you think this shows a shift maybe in some sort of attitude? And
Absolutely.
This is only the immigration question. I'm not saying like you come in the candidacy with a lot on your resume, but do you think also this is a shift to the immigration attitude?
Absolutely. When I ran for office, I took a look at just our census data. Our new census had just kind of come up at that point. And in the last 10 years, like 40%, right, of the population in Upper Arlington has changed over, is new people, right? That's a marked shift, right? We know that Central Ohio is the largest growing area in the state, and actually in the Midwest, I think behind Chicago. And that's the power of just new energy and new people, right? It helps to shift how we think about who we live with, who do we do community with, who we work with. All those things force us to say, how am I doing community, and how am I communicating with others and building alongside others? So yes, I think if anything, my election, and really actually the year I got elected, the first LGBTQ plus was elected to city council, and on our school board, the first person of color was elected. So it was a big change for Upper Arlington, right? Which only proves that, to your point, the attitudes are changing. What we want to see in leadership is changing, and voters are going to the polls and saying yes to that. So, yeah.
And do you think people would be surprised, again, now I want to get into some of the data, do you think people would be surprised just how many foreign-born individuals and folks are in the central Ohio area? I pulled data just from the one immigration court in Ohio. It's up in Cleveland. Currently, there are 51,000 cases pending, but of that,
I believe it.
of that
crazy.
51,000, nearly 15,000 are from individuals from the Columbus area. That's more than 20%.
Yeah.
And that's compared to 1,000 individuals in the Cleveland area, about 4,000 individuals from the Cincinnati area.
Yeah. Those numbers don't surprise me, because 1 in 5 people in the workplace by 2035 will be a foreign-born employee. And, I was a bit surprised by that number when I started looking into immigration more and writing the book. Because, again, it's my lived experience, and I know that I'm one of few, one of only in many spaces. And so I was kind of alarmed to understand that not in a long time here. I mean, we're talking like 10 years from now, 1 in 5 people in the workplace is going to be a foreign-born. But only 3% of our Fortune 100 CEOs are immigrants. And so it's, whether we like it or not, whatever the narrative is, whatever stereotypes are, that's what's happening. In fact, we know that America is a land of immigrants. Like, literally, the American story started with immigration, right? So if any other country should do it well, it's this country. And it's really the philosophy of this country to birth new ideas and innovate based on newcomers and new Americans. So.
But I do feel, as we lead up to November, we have a presidential election. This is a very controversial, heated issue. What do you have to say to those folks, that are, let's deport them, let's do all that? I mean, is there meeting midway there, or they're just really not seeing the full picture, or what is it when because we're going to hear the talking points heat up in the next couple of months. What do you expect to hear? What do you think is right? What do you think is wrong? What do you want people to know?
Yeah, Lisa, you're just hitting the hard questions today. So here's the thing. When I often always talk about the loud minority, right? The immigration issue is a very loud minority type of issue. First of all, when things are bubbling up to that national level, we're talking about 4 states in the United States. That's New York, California, Florida, and Texas, right? That have this large, first of all, that's where the largest set of immigrant populations are, right? That's also the states that are dealing with all the issues that come with an influx of that population, whether that be their housing, economy, like getting through the immigration courts, all those kind of things, large filing of paperwork. So we're only talking about 4 states that are rising to this national level, that are making it an immigration issue when it's really not. I'm not saying that those states don't have issues, right? That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm not saying that we don't need to fix the process and figure out how to tone things down. But this concept that the country is outrun by illegal immigration is just false. It's just not there. And we can continue to try to find that as an issue, or we can move on to bigger, real issues that we need to worry about for the election.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I think, again, the immigration stories, especially that came out of the panel, and especially at some spots in our city, it's economy.
Yes, it's revitalizing communities. It is helping our economy. I mean, we talk about this talent shortage which I have my own theories on that, right? I think it's an underutilization problem. But yes, it is helping all these things, right? With all the other states that are not the 4 states. So every other person is thriving on the immigration issue in my mind.
Okay. Including Ohio.
Ohio is absolutely thriving, right? I think it was said on the panel, go down Morse Road, right? Go down Bethel, and you'll see what the immigrant population is starting for businesses, entrepreneurship, where people are shopping, where people are going, where people are spending their money. You'll see the jobs that are being created, right? The houses that are being built and people buying those. So that is revitalization of what would otherwise have been, dead spaces. So, yeah.
Thank you for joining me on
Oh
such
my
a
God,
thorough conversation on your story, on your journey. It is absolutely fascinating, and I think you bring just such a personal and individual perspective on it, which
Yes.
I love to share with our viewers. But is there
Thank you for having me.
something I did not ask you? I know we
Oh my
talked
gosh.
for a while. Is there something I did not ask you, or something you wanted to really emphasize, or something I did not touch on? Because obviously you've got this.
Yeah.
You've been writing a book on this, and that you feel is important that you want to address.
Yeah. No, thank you. I think for me, the big thing is we always make the immigration issue something that government should deal with, and our lawmakers and policy. But I really think it starts with the workplace. I really think we need leaders within the workplace, fully utilizing their workforce, fully appreciating the immigrant talent, elevating them to leadership. Again, those leadership numbers are stark. We start to see that. I think we'll start to change the attitudes around immigrants, or what they bring or what they don't bring. Like we start to reduce stereotypes when we do a better job of living and working with the very people that we are, just making a talking point for politics. So it shouldn't just be an issue that our lawmakers and government officials deal with. I think our workplaces also have a responsibility in it.
All
For
right.
sure.
All right. Well, thank you.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. This was lovely.
Well, Ukeme Awakessien Jeter.
Yes.
Thank you so much. And we would love to have you back when your book does come out. Would love to talk more about immigration, especially as we know we'll be hearing a lot about it in the coming months.
Yes,
so thank
indeed.
you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for joining us, and make sure to tune in for our next episode.